What's going on, everyone? Welcome back, or welcome if it's your first time checking out the channel. I am John Ward, and today we are going to be not only continuing the Wes Craven review series, but we're going to be starting a whole new franchise with Scream from 1996. And I'm just going to get this out of the way immediately. This is an absolute classic for me. It is one of my favorites of all time. I mean, hello. John Carpenter's The Thing might technically be my actual number one horror movie of all time, but Scream is easily the most rewatched one for me. If I ever need a comfort movie, as comforting as you can get with masked serial killers running around, this is the one that I always throw on, whether I'm paying attention to it or not. This is one that I can just always have on and have a good time with. It was also one of the first horror movies I had ever seen, and still one of the smartest. I remember walking into my older sister's room, I was probably like 5 or 6, walked in, this movie was on, it was about 2 minutes in, it was still in the opening scene, and I was hooked immediately. I could not look away. Slashers are my favorite subgenre of horror, especially ones with a whodunit mystery twist going on. And Scream is, and still is to this day, the gold standard for that formula. But before we jump into it, if you like this video and want to see more like it, please be sure to like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. It helps out the channel and the video. I really appreciate it. If you like Wes Craven stuff, I have already done a few reviews of his movies so far. We're still early on in the series, though. But I will try to remember to put cards up top for the ones that I have done if you want to check those out. And with all that nonsense out of the way, let's get right into it with The Upside. As most fans know, horror in the 90s was pretty much on life support, especially in the slasher genre, so all the credit in the world to Scream for coming in and saying, "Not on my watch, I don't think so." It not only revitalized a dying genre, but did it with a fresh and different look on what is basically a fairly generic plot. A mass serial killer stalks and murders high schoolers. That doesn't sound that extraordinary until you add in the meta-commentary going on. It uses the perspective of people who actually watch these kinds of movies, so you're not just following complete idiots walking around. It was fresh and clever, and still somehow managed to avoid that overly annoying category of the, "look how smart we are, huh?" Because it is very easy to fall into that trap, especially with meta humor, particularly in horror movies. Obviously, there had been earlier attempts at this type of stuff with things like Jason Lives and New Nightmare. I just don't think anything quite pulled it off with the finesse that Scream did. Now, this movie has an absolutely stacked cast who all give really stellar performances. It's one of those things that just boosts this movie up to a whole nother level with the performances and the characters. You've got Neve Campbell absolutely crushing it as Sydney, giving the perfect blend of vulnerability, I almost fucked up on that word, and being traumatized, but she's just still so tough. Even early on in this first one, she is dealing with a lot emotionally, but she does not have a high threshold of putting up with other people's shit, I'll tell you that. She's just a warrior. She's a fighter in spirit while still dealing with so much emotional grief and pertains to her mother's demise a year earlier. Just awesome. It gives her something to do and ties in directly to the plot, instead of just being a final girl who's a final girl just because she happens to be the last one left alive. And Sydney is actually my favorite final girl in movie history. Skeet Ulrich, my boy, is charmingly greasy in all the right ways. He is just exactly what the character of Billy Loomis needed to be. He gives off this kind of devilish duality to the character, and it's really intriguing while you're also kind of grossed out by the guy even before any reveals come. Courtney Cox is awesome as this ruthless, self-absorbed reporter just looking for the next big scoop. I love how much of a bitch she is in this movie, And it is such a fun contrast compared to her as Monica in Friends. I love her in this. David Arquette is great. He turns Dewey from what could have been the way too much comedic relief, one-note joke into something that's somehow very grounded while still having a sense of like goofy and aloofness, but being so comforting at the same time too. He feels like if a golden retriever became a small town cop. I'm really glad they went with this character as more of the lovable schmuck than the buff hero cop that he was originally written as. It was just an on-point decision. Malibu's Most Wanted, B-Rad. Jamie Kennedy is an absolute blast as Randy. He is every horror movie fan that is watching the movie. He just happens to be in the movie. I love his character and I love the performance. Even Kenny the cameraman, who has just not a lot of screen time or anything to do, but even he's memorable. Oh, poor Kenny. Roger Jackson gives a creepy and iconic performance, only in voice, as the voice of Ghostface over the phone, but I think he was the absolute perfect choice for that. But the absolute standout of this movie is Matthew Lillard, who steals the screen every second he is shown. He gives a performance that people still remember to this day, despite being such a severely underwritten character. You can just feel the amount of energy and effort he put into this role. Now, there is a negative to the usage of Lillard in this movie, and I wish he had a bit more to do before the third act finale and everything, but every time he is on screen, he is absolutely magnetic. Wes Craven's direction is absolutely masterful here. You've got tense kills, you've got sharp pacing, you've got great humor, and you've got just the right amount of like meta humor and commentary going on without it feeling overdone or smug or anything like that. This film to me just walks the perfect tightrope of subverting some tropes while just fully embracing others, and a lot of that is in credit due to the script written by Kevin Williamson, who absolutely killed it. This movie feels airtight. It does not feel like there's anything in the movie that doesn't add to something that is revealed to you later on. While the score isn't anything iconic or legendary, it gets the job done. I think it does pretty well while not being anything that particularly sticks in your mind. Although I do love the usage of Red Right Hand by Nick Cave. And of course you can't talk about this movie without talking about the opening scene with Drew Barrymore, which I think is one of the best opening scenes ever filmed, not just in horror, but in any movie. It just ratchets up the tension and the suspense, starting with a seemingly innocent phone call, and then just the usage of, you see all these windows in the background as the voice becomes more threatening and ominous. It's just insane the amount of tension they can get out of you before they ever even show anything bad happening. They're just merely barely hinting at it at times. And obviously, Drew Barrymore gives a fantastic, albeit brief, performance going on. And just what a smart play for the movie, with the most famous person in the cast over all the posters, all the ads, and they're killed off in the first 10 minutes in a pretty brutal way. Just such a great rug pull. I think it was brilliantly done. Excellent. Now, the kills aren't particularly gory or anything, but I don't think they need to be. The build-up and the tension and suspense leading up to it, I think work well enough for what the film needs without needing to go into too much carnage candy territory. The film just doesn't feel like it needs it that much. Maybe in the sequels that becomes kind of an issue, but in this first one I think it was fine. And the chases are exceptionally gripping as well. I like the little brief chase we get in the beginning with Drew Barrymore. I like the first one with Sydney at her home. I like the finale with Sydney running through Stu's pimp-ass farmhouse. And I actually do enjoy that Ghostface comes off as a bit clumsy at times. I know some people kind of mark that as a negative, but I've always looked at it as it's two high schoolers running around in a costume that limits your visibility. you're gonna trip over shit. They're not like professional assassins or anything. And I truly enjoy the fact that Ghostface messes with people. Anytime he's tormenting and toying with people over the phone, I always enjoy any scene. And I love that this is a slasher that doesn't rely just on the kills, going with them not being particularly gory. I think it works well because this is a movie that has such a tight mystery going on as well that ties Sidney's backstory, as I said earlier, just organically into the plot and the motive of the killers, or at least one of the killers. And more importantly, I think the movie plays fair with the mystery of it. The clues work, the red herrings make sense, it never contradicts itself with there's at least one killer unaccounted for at all times when something's going down. So I think having that two-killer twist worked really well in its benefit. Especially for me, when I watch slashers, I'm usually not on the lookout for multiple killers. If it's a whodunit, I'm trying to single out one person. So I like that this kind of even turns that little aspect on its head. And making Billy so obviously suspicious that he goes from the obvious prime suspect to not really suspicious because he's so suspicious, I think that just works so well in the movie's favor. To me, the entire third act of this movie is just fantastic. From the moment we hit the party at Stu's house, it is just non-stop wall-to-wall tension for me. From Gale trying to sneak around and spy on the party, Dewey, bless his soul, trying to be a competent cop, all the drunk teens hanging out watching Halloween until they decide that they want to go poke Henry Winkler's corpse with a stick, leaving our main cast isolated once again. There's just so much going on that's packed into what is actually a relatively small area. Like, you have all the space that you can go, but it still feels cut off and isolated, and I think it's done extremely well. And I'll be honest, I'd kill to live in any house in this movie. Sidney's house, Stu's house, Drew's house. Just peak rich kid real estate in the 90s going on here, and I am truly jealous. And this whole original trilogy just strikes a huge nostalgia vein for me. As I said, it's some of the first horror movies I've ever watched were the original three. I know it's not really a critique point, but I can't lie and say that that doesn't just boost these movies up for me too. So, sucks to suck. Now on to my mixed feelings, and I have one. It's honestly, I just kind of wish there was another kill or two going on just to kind of keep the action going. And I wish there was a few more fleshed out suspects here. That was something that I always felt was a little lacking. But that's not even really like a nitpick on it. Like, it's just, I want more out of a movie that I already think is damn near perfect. And on to the downside, and I only have one for this category as well, and it is just the fact that Matthew Lillard actually disappears for a big chunk of the third act. I know a lot of people seem to complain about Mickey in Scream 2 just disappearing for 45 minutes before his reveal, but the same kind of thing happens here with Matthew Lillard as well. It just, to me, always made him kind of stick out a little bit like a sore thumb, like too obvious of a killer when everyone else at this party's unaccounted for and then he's just gone. But to me, that's not even much of a negative. It doesn't really bring down the movie at all, because the bottom line is this is an all-timer that has earned its status as a true classic. It still holds up and is still insanely rewatchable in a hard-to-touch way that most movies can't compare to. To me, this is one of the best of all time. And those are my thoughts on Scream from 1996. What do you think? Do you agree with me thinking it's one of the best of all time? Are you not so favorable on it? How old were you when you first watched it? Go down to the comments, let me know. And while you're doing that, please be sure to like, share, subscribe, and all that stuff. Really appreciate it. We will be continuing the Scream franchise throughout the month, looking at the next five, yeah, because we just did one, so looking at the next 5 until the 7th one comes out, in which case I will actually have a new movie review again for you guys. And then we'll be following it up with a whole bunch of rankings. We'll do the Scream franchise itself, best to worst, or worst to best, actually. Scream openings, the opening sequence of each movie, because that would not be the same as how I would rank the movies themselves. And my ranking of all the Ghostface from worst to best as well. So be sure to stick around and keep an eye out for those. And obviously, the next 3 movies will be continuing the Wes Craven series as well. As I said earlier, if you are interested in any of those, I'll try to put up links or just look on the channel. They're right there. They have their own playlist. Thank you all for sticking to the end. I appreciate it. And we will be back soon with Scream 2. And until then, see ya.